Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another new episode of the What If series on this channel. I welcome you all if you are a visitor here to the Mainstream Indie Music channel. We talk about everything indie music related. And if you are a subscriber, welcome back. I can't believe we're closing in on 800 subscribers, and I'm so grateful to all of you that check in and listen. Now, today's topic, as seen probably by either the thumbnail or the title of the video, we need to clarify some things first before going in. First off, indie music. What exactly am I talking about when I say that phrase, right? Now, of course, if you were to actually dissect the word, and this kind of goes for every single video on this channel, it would be a music artist who joined on an independent music label, whether it's a smaller sized music label or if they literally have created their own music label, which has happened in the past before as well. That is what indie music technically means. However, whenever I have brought up indie music, either in this video or in the past, I kind of tend to generalize it by using examples. You know, if you were to talk about music with a random person on the street today, if you were to mention artists such as, and this is no diss on them, but if you were to mention artists such as Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, 9.5, almost 9.9 times out of 10, you are going to guarantee that person knows what you're talking about, right? They know who exactly you're talking about. But if I go up to that same person and I say list of bands that I've covered even on this channel, if I were to say, Airborne Toxic Event, Cloud Cult, Temper Trap, Fox, 9.9 times out of 10, they're probably not going to know who I'm talking about. Now, in the indie music genre, are there some exceptions? Yes, of course. That's kind of where you kind of go into the gray area. You see on this picture right here, if I were to mention MGMT, probably would get some more people who know who they were. If I were to mention Arcade Fire, again, they would probably know who I was talking about. But again, the law of averages, they're not going to be as widely recognized as those aforementioned artists from before. So that's indie music when I mention that. Now, the other thing, when I talk about indie music coming back, what do I mean by that? Well, this is no diss on, because I've had a lot of comments on this before. People say, well, of course there's indie music before the 2000s era. There was this band, this band. I think that's kind of silly because I've covered David Byrne on this channel. I think he's almost one of the godfathers of indie music, and the Talking Heads, we're going way back in music history when you talk about the Talking Heads. So, of course, indie music and the genre of indie music, alternative, whatever you want to call it, has been around for a long time. Think of like Radiohead in the 90s, right? But there is no doubt that in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, indie music probably reached its highest form, where it was the closest that indie had ever gotten into the mainstream era. I think it ultimately culminated in Arcade Fire winning a Grammy, or maybe even Bon Iver winning a Grammy, right? People are like, who is this person? But it finally kind of broke into the mainstream. But since then, I mean, it's gone away again, right? You haven't seen indie artists being played in major radio stations, performing on big, Grammy or Emmy award-winning stages. Some people think that's a good thing. Some people wish that it would go back. But in the early 2000s, there's no doubt that indie music started to gain momentum again, and that was because it coincided with the rise of both the internet and the usage of internet, but also social media. In that, as I've mentioned before in other videos, artists did not just have to strictly go on tour to promote themselves anymore. They were able to use social media. They're able to use the internet to get their music out to a broader audience more quickly. Now, that kind of circles us back now completely to the start. indie music making a rise to that era of the early 2000s once again? Is it possible? Do you think that indie music has it in them to get back to that popularity again? I think so. I've had a lot of discussions with close friends of mine and acquaintances, workmates over the last couple of weeks, which has kind of spawned the idea of this video of indie music coming back once again. Maybe pop punk music making a return once again. I kind of sneak some punk music in there because that's also kind of like my secret love of music genre. But again, punk music is also in the same boat, right? Like it's not in the mainstream music. A lot of people throw around the terms, oh, rock is dead, rock is dying. Uh, and so that's why I brought up this idea of, well, I think this music honestly could come back once again. And really, some people think indie music didn't die. It simply just went underground, and it's been growing in the underground once again. I think it was in my video about concerts from a few months back where I brought up the sudden momentous rise of Two Door Cinema Club, where they almost thought that they were in the fortnight of their career. Like they were pretty much done. They would probably be closing up shop pretty soon. Not that they didn't like playing together, not that they didn't enjoy their music, but they kind of just recognized like, hey, we had our fun in the early 2000s and we're pretty much, this is it. Like we're not going to return back. Then all of a sudden, because of some of their songs being played on famous TikTok clips, I always say Temper Trap, Two Door Cinema Club, all of a sudden kind of has got a rebirth and they're gaining momentum again. They're touring more than they were before, and they're noticing that their crowds are bigger than ever. And so I think, kind of to the main point here, that there is a gap in music right now. Yes, there are the Kendrick Lamars, there are the quote-unquote industry plants, not that he is, but I think people are starting to see through the mainstream indie or mainstream music right now. And yes, there are your pop artists, but I think people are looking for something different. They are looking for something deeper in music that explains more and more than how they feel. And honestly, whether it is old indie bands coming back or maybe there will be a resurgence of new indie bands coming out, I think it may claw its way back. What do y'all think? I want to hear from you, and I'll see y'all next week.